If you watched Gilmore Girls, you know that kitchen. The pots flying, the ingredients everywhere. The absolute disaster that somehow always turned into something beautiful.
So I lunged, and then the floor slipped, and then...
There was a town. A small, weird, wonderful town where everyone knew your name. Coffee was basically a religion, and a mother and daughter talked so fast your brain could barely keep up. But here's what nobody talks about. The people who built that world for us, their real lives after Stars Hollow were nothing like the fairy tale. One became the biggest comedian on the planet. One walked away from everything quietly with no explanation. And one never really left Lorelai behind. Because she didn't have to. Remember the episode where she taste tested her own wedding cake 17 times and still wasn't satisfied? That was Sookie St. James. Lorelai's person. The one who showed up at 2 a.m. The one who cried at everything. The one who made you genuinely hungry every single episode. That was Sookie. Completely obsessed, completely herself, and completely impossible not to love. The woman playing her was relatively unknown when Gilmore Girls started. Just a funny, talented actress waiting for her moment. And then that moment came, and it didn't just arrive. It exploded. The same woman who was dropping pots in that kitchen was now standing on the Oscar stage. Twice. That was 25 years ago. Let that sink in. The girl in that kitchen is now one of the most powerful women in Hollywood. She was the girl who carried a book everywhere, had an answer for everything. There was something different about Rory Gilmore, and made being smart feel cool for the very first time on television. Every girl who ever felt a little too serious, a little too ambitious, a little too different, saw themselves in Rory Gilmore. She wasn't the most popular. She wasn't the prettiest. She was just real. Achingly, beautifully real. And when it ended, when Stars Hollow went quiet for the last time, millions of people didn't just grieve the show, they grieved Rory specifically. So what happened to the girl who played her? For a while, everything you'd expect. And then came Handmaid's Tale, a role so dark, so completely opposite to Rory Gilmore, that audiences genuinely didn't recognize her at first. She won an Emmy for it. Let that sink in. And then she got quiet. No red carpets, no interviews, no announcements. Alexis Bledel simply stepped back from all of it. Maybe she just did what Rory could never quite figure out how to do. From a girl who never stopped running, to a woman who finally stood still. And then he showed up. No warning, no introduction, just a leather jacket and a copy of Kerouac that he definitely wanted you to notice. Jess Mariano didn't walk into Stars Hollow. He crashed into it. And every single person watching absolutely hated him and absolutely loved him. Remember when Rory opens that book and finds his handwriting in every single margin? No grand gesture, no speech, just proof that he was paying attention, that he always was. That one moment made an entire generation of women set an impossible standard for men. The boy who played the bad boy grew up to become the man who makes everyone cry. Jack Pearson, a father so devoted, so present, so completely everything Jess never was. Same eyes, completely different soul. Jess Mariano taught Rory how to feel deeply. Jack Pearson taught America how to love completely. And the man behind both of them stayed exactly who he always was. Quiet, private, intentional. Before Jess, before Logan, there was Dean. Simple, steady, uncomplicated Dean. The kind of boy every parent wanted their daughter to bring home. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't performing. He was just genuinely interested in who she was. And for Rory Gilmore, a girl surrounded by people with agendas, that was everything. Dean loved Rory at her most ordinary, before Yale, before she figured out who she was. He showed up when she was still figuring it all out, and loved every version of her anyway. And then came Supernatural. 15 seasons. 15 years. The boy from Stars Hollow became one of the longest-running lead actors in American television history. Dean never got the girl in the end. But the man who played him built something far bigger than Stars Hollow could have ever contained. There are characters you watch. And then there are characters that climb through the screen and sit down next to you and become part of your actual life. Lorelai Gilmore was that character. For millions of women, she still is. She walked into that diner every morning like coffee was oxygen. And somehow in that tiny, ridiculous routine made you feel like someone out there truly understood you.
In 2000, when this show first aired, that was genuinely revolutionary. And underneath all the jokes, there was a mother who had given up everything to build a life for her daughter from scratch. No safety net, no backup plan, just love and sheer determination. That is why women didn't just watch Lorelai Gilmore. They held on to her. Today she writes books, she does Broadway. She shows up exactly when you need her to, and steps back when she wants to. A woman completely in control of her own story, which sounds exactly like something Lorelai would have planned all along. Some characters end when the show ends. Lorelai Gilmore never really did. And maybe that says everything about the woman who played her. Every great love story needs a place. And Lorelai Gilmore had a small, slightly grumpy diner run by a man who complained about everything and quietly loved her through all of it. Luke Danes didn't write poetry. He didn't make grand speeches. He just showed up, every single morning, with coffee ready before she even asked. With a look on his face that said everything his words never quite could. He renovated her house. He built a chuppah with his bare hands. He showed up when things fell apart. He never made it a big deal. He never asked for credit. In a world full of people who leave, Luke Danes stayed. Scott Patterson was a former minor league baseball player who spent years waiting for his moment. Stars Hollow gave it to him in the most unexpected way possible. And years after the show ended, he started a podcast, rewatching every single episode of Gilmore Girls, from the beginning, episode by episode, memory by memory. A man who spent 7 years pretending he didn't care, spent the next decade proving that he absolutely did. Luke Danes never left Stars Hollow. And honestly, neither did Scott Patterson. The first time you saw Paris Geller, you were terrified of her. She walked into every room like she had already won whatever argument was about to happen. You wanted Rory to win. You wanted Paris to lose. You were completely sure about that. And then, season by season, something happened that you never saw coming. Paris stopped being the villain and became the most fascinating character in the entire show. Not because she softened, but because you finally understood her. Because underneath all that ambition was a girl who had been told her whole life she was too much, too loud, too driven, too intense, and decided the only way to survive that was to become even more of all of it. If you have ever felt too much for this world, you understood Paris Geller on a level that had nothing to do with television. Here is something most people don't know. Liza Weil didn't audition for Paris. She auditioned for Rory. She didn't get the gentle, beloved lead. She got something far more interesting. Hollywood never quite knew what to do with her after the show. Always the most interesting person in every scene, and somehow always the most underused. But every few months without fail, someone starts a thread. Someone posts a clip. Thousands of people agree immediately that Paris Geller was the real main character all along, that Liza Weil deserved more, because they were always thinking it. So, if you were a Paris Geller girl, if you saw yourself in her intensity and her refusal to want less than everything, then you already know this section hit differently. Every single person who watched Gilmore Girls had the same reaction to Emily Gilmore. You respected her completely. You were slightly afraid of her constantly. And somewhere deep down in a place you would never admit out loud, you wanted her approval more than almost anyone else on that screen. Because that was the genius of Emily Gilmore. She wasn't the villain. She wasn't the hero. She was something far more complicated and far more human than either of those things. She was a mother who loved her daughter so fiercely that it came out wrong almost every single time. Emily Gilmore didn't just feel like a character. She felt like a conversation you were still trying to finish. Today, Kelly Bishop carries herself with the same quiet authority that made Emily Gilmore impossible to look away from. But here is the moment that stops every Gilmore Girls fan completely. Edward Herrmann, the man who played Richard Gilmore, Emily's devoted husband, the quiet, steady anchor of that entire family, passed away in December 2014. The revival Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life gave Kelly Bishop the chance to play that grief honestly, and what she did with it was nothing short of extraordinary. Stars Hollow gave us many things. It gave us coffee and fast talking, and a town that felt like home. But Kelly Bishop gave us Emily Gilmore, and Emily Gilmore gave us permission to be complicated. To love imperfectly, to grieve openly, to keep showing up even when everything hurts. 8 people, 1 small town, 25 years, and somehow Gilmore Girls still feels like home. Because the best stories don't just end when the credits roll. They stay with you. They grow with you. They show up in your memory on quiet Sunday mornings when you need something warm and familiar and completely yours. So here is your reminder wherever you are right now, that Stars Hollow is always there. The coffee is always hot, and the Gilmore Girls never really left. Drop a comment right now, Team Jess or Team Dean, Team Rory or Team Paris. We need to know. And if this video took you back to Stars Hollow even for a few minutes, share it with someone who needs a little bit of that magic today.